Hi, this is Attila16 for Dateyourgame channel, and this is the video commentary for Men of War multiplayer gameplay number 1. This is not my first video of Men of War. If you check in my archive, there are many of them. I recorded this with some friend from Dateyourgame forum. Since a couple of them did not have Men of War before, they took advantage of a free week of Men of War between May 11 to May 23, 2010, and I took advantage of that to play with them. This video being one of the couple of game we played together, and this is Victory Flag round, where it's 4v4. The objective is to hold the central position, central flag, the longest, and prevent the enemy team from doing the same. This is one of my favorite mode because it tends to focus all the action toward the center and big battle, and many times you end up with a city totally destroyed. In this case I was in charge of the left flank because I just was spawning closer to that side. That's pretty much how you determine who work on what. Great Dictator was in charge of the right flank. Kyle and Darnay were in charge of the middle. As for the tactic I chose, I mostly invested in Stormtrooper. I mostly chose that approach because there's a lot of building around, and it's easy to evade tank fire and hide around and ambush enemy tank. So that was mostly my strategy. And Stormtrooper have a Panzerfaust, which is in my opinion the best anti-tank weapon of this game, because a Stormtrooper is very flexible, it's mobile, you can hide it nearly everywhere, while if you take tank for example, they are very easy to spot, you cannot really hide them. They can be flanked by fast moving vehicle, they can be ambushed by infantry. They cost a lot to buy, and that hurt you long term when you lose them. Tank also have a lot of trouble to spot hidden infantry, while Stormtrooper have a tendency to attract enemy infantry fire, because most people don't put their infantry on old fire. And with their body armor, they can take a lot of punishment from light weapon fire. In clear, one Stormtrooper may be equal to 2 or 3 riflemen or 2 or 3 SMG guy. This make them very good weapon against tank, but also great weapons against hidden infantry. And with your Stormtrooper you may push forward and turn your enemy into a completely blind enemy by killing all the infantry spread around. So while your enemy may invest in the biggest, strongest tank ever, if you advance with Stormtrooper in a spread formation, you will divide his fire, and you may have time to kill all its infantry and turn his big tank into a blind enemy, and it will be very easy for you to kill it. Even in the case where you don't reach the enemy tank, the fact that you neutralize his infantry actually force him to spend more points into producing more infantry to spot for him and scout ahead. But while the infantry is very effective, at some point you will have no choice to invest into a tank. And I will say it's not very important to invest in tank early on in the game, because your infantry can take care of most tank. But at some point you will have to buy a big tank to at least keep the enemy tank busy. And this is why if you have a good team, it's good to simply invest in infantry at first. The infantry doesn't cost too much, and they never get outdated, unlike tank, which if you spend on a tank that isn't too good long term, well, at some point it will become totally useless, because the enemy will have tank that have better armor and better weapon that can totally blow up your tank without any problem from any direction, even in a frontal shot. That's why, as you can see in this video, I tend to restrain myself in spending to keep my points for a bigger tank, which will outmatch every enemy tank. And in this case I wait for the Panther, because Panther tank are fast moving. Their turret turn really quickly, so it's easy to face your enemies and shoot them from any direction, unlike a tiger tank, which are slow and you have to turn the whole tank to actually turn your turret toward the right direction. But of course, to be able to wait for such tank at this point in the game, I have to have a reliable team. In this case, the other guy knew what they were doing, as you can hear from their voice chat. And this is one aspect that is really important in Men of War, to have a good team. Because if one of your teammates isn't as good as his adversary, you will get owned automatically. You really cannot do much mistake in Men of War as it is now. But at the same time, playing in team is really the fun part of this game, because it's all about mutual support and each player need to do what he's supposed to do. And winning as a team is much more rewarding than winning alone. But of course, there is always the difficulty to find four enemies of equal skill which will cooperate. And sometimes there's always some issue at finding proper opponents. So sometimes you may find some very weak enemies that don't cooperate at all, while other time you may end up fighting some very good guy which have thousands of games and stuff like that. So it's really hard to anticipate what kind of player you will face. And this is one aspect regular players are aware of, because in many cases when you host a game and you're four players in the same team, usually people will figure out that you guys are probably on Ventrilo and you are probably used to play together. That means you are well organized, and against a team which doesn't cooperate well, it's clear that the other side will fail. The side effect of such behavior is that sometimes it can take a while before the game fills itself with player and that you're ready to play. And usually when one team win, you will see the room get empty. This means that you will rarely ever have the same player 2 times in a row. But when you do find a very good enemy team, it's really rewarding to play it, but it requires a lot of energy. So after a couple of games of Men of War, it's very likely that you will be exhausted. This game requires more attention than most first-person shooter, even Call of Duty or Bad Company 2. And this is largely due to the fact that you can actually micromanage your unit to the point of directly controlling them like if it was a third-person shooter. You can directly control your infantry and your tank, but personally I nearly only micromanage the tank by directly controlling their fire. I move them around like a regular RTS, but I just direct their fire when it's important. And as you will see later on in this video, it's very important to direct control your tank against enemy tank, because this game is very realistic in terms of ammo penetration in the armor, and one hit can actually destroy your tank depending where you take it. And sometimes if your cannon is too weak, it may actually do nothing to the enemy. So you can fire all day long to the front of a panther and it won't do anything. This is why it can be very important to manually control your tank and aim in the weak points of each tank, because each tank have different stats for each side or a part of the tank, and you can even damage certain part like the cannon. So you really need to know your enemy vehicle and their weak points. So I will invite you to continue to watch the gameplay video and keep an eye open for my future commentaries video.